Okay. You're a good match. Good afternoon. My name is Lil Tuttle. I'm Education Director at the Claire Booth Luce Institute, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to the PolitiChicks. Dr. Gina Loudon, on your right, is the host of America Trends with Dr. Gina. She has 2 master's degrees and a PhD, and she's authored 2 books. Her psychological, political, and social commentary has inspired appearances on many television networks, including Fox News, Fox Business, C-SPAN, ABC, Al Jazeera, and the BBC. She has also appeared on ABC's primetime reality show, Wife Swap. You'll have to read her book to find out about that. And Jon Stewart's Daily Show on Comedy Central. She is the wife of former Missouri State Senator Gina Loudon, and she has 5 children, including 1 child with Down syndrome by the miracle of adoption. To her right, left, from your perspective, her right, Anne-Marie Murrell is CEO and editor-in-chief of PolitiChicks.com, which was nominated at CPAC for the People's Choice Blogger of the Year Award. She also contributes to Town Hall Finance, The Blaze, The Daily Caller, Front Page Magazine, and WorldNet Daily. Anne-Marie regularly appears on Newsmax TV, The Rick Amato Show, and she has appeared on many other shows that I'm sure you've seen: Fox and Friends, Hannity, The Dr. Phil Show, The Mike Huckabee Show, Lou Dobbs, and C-SPAN. Together with Morgan Brittany, who isn't here today, they are the authors of a new book, and we welcome them to discuss what women really want. I'm going to throw out a couple of questions, or 2 or 3 questions, before we open it to the audience so they can talk with you directly. Anne-Marie, you open the book with a parable about competing political parties. One that built the perfect product called R, that was marketed so poorly that few were drawn to it, and another that developed a disastrous product called D, that was marketed so spectacularly it won adoring fans. Anybody reading that would find that cause for not celebration, but you say it's reason for hope. Why is that?
It is reason for hope, and I open, every time I speak throughout the country, I usually read that essay, and it's called R. It's at the beginning of our book. What? Oh, hi. Can you hear me now? I always read that essay, and when I finish, either the crowd applauds, or they just sit there silently, and then I have to jump right in and explain. We haven't been very good at selling our product, the Republican Party platform, which is the perfect product. We will literally save the world if we can follow the actual Republican Party platform without watering it down, without bending over backward and chiseling it away at our foundation so much that we are turning into Democrats. And I was a Democrat till 9/11, so I know of what I speak. I'm not going to vote for anyone who believes the way I believed prior to 9/11. And the message of hope with R is that we do have this product. It's still there. The bones are still there. We have to find political leaders who are willing to follow that platform. And the great thing is, since Barack Obama took office, most of us are speaking out now, and the 2 words that almost killed us before, silent majority, is no longer something that we can be proud of or claim to be. So the message of hope is that we're more vocal, that we're not afraid to stand up for our principles the way they do. And they're brilliant at that. They're brilliant at standing up for what they believe in. And we used to think, well, we don't need to counter that. We'll just let them be them and we're us. We can't do that anymore. So that's the gist of it. So we've come a million miles from where we were just a short while ago.
If I can just add one thing to that, we also included a chapter in our book called Platforms and Stilettos, because we are talking about what our platform says and how important that is, but we're also talking about women's role in that, and we're very, very proud of the progress we've made as women. A statistic that you may not be familiar with that I think helps me sometimes when I'm feeling discouraged or to encourage especially activist audiences who sometimes we start to feel like, gosh, we're working so hard, but are we really making any progress, because we see them on the other side just glaring. And that statistic is this. In 2012, 56% of women voted for Democrats. In 2014, that number completely juxtaposed, flipped on its head, and 56% of women voted for Republicans. That says to me that you, conservative women, you are making a difference, and that's what we can be so excited about. And if we can continue that trend, we can continue to stay true to the planks that are in our platform. We'll be like, you know, when you're well, the guys, I think there's like 1 or 2 guys in the room, but okay, 4, I'm counting 4. But guys, you know this, right?
5,
when you're dancing,
6?
6? Okay,
yes.
My math skills have never been my strong suit. When you're dancing
5
with that woman, right? And she's got on those stilettos. This is why we entitled the chapter, Platforms and Stilettos. And she missteps and sticks that stiletto right in that tender part of your foot. You are never going to forget that woman. That's the mark that we as conservative women are leaving on politics, and I expect it to be even better in 2016.
Right.
Next question for Dr. Gina. You say radical feminists are a huge part of our opposition's marketing and messaging machine with their war on women attacks, something that we've talked extensively about here. With anyone who dares to disagree with them, and that certainly includes the 3 of you, the 2 of you, do you see a way to turn that messaging on them, back on them, to turn it around?
You know, I think that you guys have already done a great job of this. Lil, I am seeing where this war on women argument, as Margie alluded to many times in her speech, is simply not working. And they're making fools of themselves. If a woman for president is such the battle cry, then why wasn't it Sarah Palin? Are they all ready to get on board with Sarah Palin if she's the nominee? Are they all willing to get on board with Carly if she's the nominee? I don't think so. So I don't think it was ever about gender. It was always about gender. It was always about their agenda. Just exactly reflecting back on what Margie said, it's not about women, it's about Hillary. It's not about their principles, it's about getting elected. And I want to say one other thing too. They lie to you about so many things. They tell you that the #1 thing that matters to women is free birth control. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm bigger than to sell my vote for $10 in free birth control, right? They tell you the other huge thing that women want is access to abortion. I'm not buying that, because when I look at, and when we've spoken with women all across this country who, as we've done our book tour, there's not a state we haven't spoken to a woman from. And you know the things they mention? It's not birth control and abortion. And you know what? It's not even about equal pay or the fair pay, right? It's not any of that. National security, economic security, constitutional freedom. It's simple to women. And you know what? Doesn't matter what party they're in. This is the lie. They tell you that what women care about are those things that I told you. But you know, this is interesting. Forbes magazine had a study, and they published a statistic that I want you to remember, so write this one down. 86% of working women were surveyed. Did you know that, working women were surveyed. 86% of the women who were surveyed that are working said they would rather have the luxury of being home. Think about that for a minute. The most important thing to women, most of us who are out there in the workforce because we've been thrust, because we're afraid for our children's future, or because we simply can't afford the regulations and the tax burdens that this administration and this government, starting back with FDR, has put on us, right? So women, by and large, 86% of us who are already working don't even necessarily want to be there. Imagine that for a moment. And then let me ask you a really simple question. How often, let's be honest about this, how often have 86% of us ever really agreed on anything? We can't even agree on hair color or shoes color. We fight with ourselves over those things, don't we? So the fact that 86% of working women agreed on that point tells you that our message is the message that is going to penetrate with women. We need to stop the division. And this is one other thing, and I don't want to go too long on this, my apologies, but this really gets me too. The way they're trying to say to us, and we have many in the establishment saying this ridiculousness to us too, they say, well, we can't talk about the social issues. How many times have you heard that? I don't care where you stand on the social issues, you and I might disagree, but I can promise you one thing. There is no such thing as a social issue, and we need to stop letting them divide us and define this narrative for us. There's no such thing as a social issue. Give me your favorite social issue. Abortion? Really? $1.5 million a day goes to fund abortion. You tell me for a minute, as a taxpayer, how is that a social issue? That's a fiscal issue. They are lying to divide us, and that's the narrative that we need to stay on top of.
I'm going to follow that up. We've talked about feminism, but you believe modern radical feminism they should be called sexualists, not feminists.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, when was the last time you heard any feminist talking about intellect or talking about something to do with a woman's brain? Everything a feminist is fighting for in 2015 is from here down. Everything, right? I cannot remember one time in the last decade that a feminist movement has been talking about a woman's intelligence. Nothing. It has to do, like Gina was saying, with birth control, with abortion, with sexual, getting free sexual products. When I was a single mom, at one point in my life, I literally lived in a garage. Not a garage apartment. I lived in a garage. They moved the car out. Even at my poorest time in my life, I could still afford $10 a month for anything. I could afford I probably spent $10 in gum when I was a single mom and living in a garage. So for them to fight so hard for something like that, these are first world elitist problems. And if you want to fight for women, follow Nani Darwish. And we need to look outside of the cushiness of this country, because the real women's war has nothing to do with free birth control or sex products or abortion or whether the Kardashians are the epitome of womanhood in America. We need to look at Sharia, and we need to make sure that we block that from ever happening in our country, and we need to understand that real women's issues, real women's rights should be fought for women who are being stoned to death right now to this day, and little girls who are being sold into slavery and rape jihad. So there, feminists. And by the way, I'm wearing my jacket because my dress is the same color, and I thought I would look like a floating head. So that's why I'm wearing my jacket. It's not to be, I'm not especially cold.
I'd like to ask both of you what you think 50 years of feminism has done to men, and what has it done to our perception of leadership in this country?
Men are terrified. They're afraid of women to the point that this has happened to Gina and Morgan and me so many times. If a man will say, "Oh, you look attractive," I'm so sorry if that offends you, they almost always follow it up with some kind of an apology, because they're so afraid they're going to be sued or slapped, or if they open our door, they've experienced for so long opening a woman's door, and she will look at them like, "I can open my own door. Are you, like it's an insult." We have got to, we talk about this a lot in our book too, that we love men who aren't afraid to be dadgum men, and aren't afraid, and mothers who aren't afraid to raise their little boys, to treat women with respect, and vice versa with the little girls. So yeah, we're concerned about men. I think they're the victims in this feminist movement, for sure.
One of the things we need most of all in this country, we need dads, we need husbands who can be strong, we need pastors in the pulpit. They need to get busy in those pulpits and stop being intimidated by a government that lies to them about what they can do to them. And America needs God. And we need to not be afraid to say those things in this next election. We need to be more fearless than ever to defend the masculine of our culture, because it is the masculine of our culture that complements exactly who we are. We're not afraid to be different from men. Conservative women don't want to be men. We want equal pay. We've all worked, as Margie alluded also, I work in broadcasting. That's a very male-dominated industry. I remember when I was a little girl, every time I take a test, it would say, you should either be an author or you should be a news anchor. And I remember thinking, Walter Cronkite? I don't look like Walter Cronkite. I didn't know female news anchors, and I didn't think I had a chance in this field. Have I experienced sexism in the workplace? You bet. Have I sued anybody for it? No, because frankly, I have a much bigger fight on my hands, and that is for this republic. You move on. I always think of it like, Congressman Todd Akin, I don't know if y'all remember him with the whole rape thing, but he had a long career before the whole rape thing. And
he didn't, wait, specify, because some people may not know, and he didn't rape anybody.
No, I'm sorry. He's the one that made the comment that basically the establishment took him down with when he mentioned, was it a real rape, or I don't remember the whole context now. But my husband served with him. And I remember one of the first times someone really came guns a-blazing to attack my husband. And if I remember correctly, it was his landmark pro-life bill, which of course you're going to get attacked for that. You expect it, but we were really young, straight out of college, and we were hurting, And he said to me, I always think of the people trying to hurt me as those little orange cones in the road, and you just kind of steer around them. And there's something that transforms in your mind when you picture the person attacking you, like they attacked us when our book came out, with a little orange cone on their head. All of a sudden, you can kind of laugh and take it all in stride and keep moving forward, steer around it, and that's exactly where we go, where we have to go. And we're going to speak to the young women tomorrow, too, but I want to say to the young women that are here right now, thicken up that skin, sister, because it's gonna be a ride. It's not gonna be pleasant, but the best rewards in life, think about it. I mean, my best reward in life, labor, period, and that was pure hell. The best, and I did it 5 times, so you have to wonder about my psychological balance, but you think about it, the best things in life are where you made yourself the most uncomfortable, where you made that phone call to that person that you didn't think would take your phone call, where you did that thing that felt so uncomfortable. And I want to challenge everyone here, not just the young women, every day, do something terribly uncomfortable. And that, honestly, that's the secret to truly living. You'll see it. And if you write it down, what you did that day, you'll go back, you'll be like, wow, I did that, and you'll find that it will open doors for you too.
I'm going to follow that up. You have a section in your book about Jonathan Haidt's, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You're exactly right. Mm-hmm.
His matrix, called the 7 Pillars in Messaging. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how maybe we can apply that ourselves as we go back home into maybe?
Yeah, Dr. Haidt, I'm a total groupie of him, and that's one of those calls, no lie, that I made one day. I Googled how to reach him, and I thought, there's no way this man is going to talk to me. Super top best-selling author. I don't know who published him. I should know. Sorry, Margie. But he was a Democrat professor, and he wanted to prove that conservatives were narrow-minded. So he came up, he interviewed people all across the country. He still does. You can still go to his site. The name of it's in our book, and I can't think of it right now. But you can go to his site, and you can take the survey that asks you, how you think about certain things, and you can contribute to the research that is ongoing, and he's still publishing and doing great things. Anyway, I called him and talked to him about it. I was so fascinated. My background's in psychology, and so I was so fascinated with this idea that you can define people by pillars, and he has 7 sacred pillars of things that people hold true and why they vote. Anyway, to make a long story short, you can read the whole thing in our book, but to make a long story short, he learned something as a liberal, that conservatives are actually far more open-minded than liberals. And you did talk about this already. It is true. We are the ones who are more inclined to listen and not to be intolerant. I was telling someone, this young Carolyn back here, who's here with us today, a student, I was talking to her about her experiences, and my daughter is 15, and we moved to Southern California recently, and I'm from the Midwest and the South, and so this has been a bit of a culture shock for me and my children, and I know you all are thinking, why would you take your children to that godforsaken place? And I thought because I homeschooled, I could protect them. Anyway, I let her go to one party, and there was a transgendered individual there who had been her friend when this person was a girl and was now trying to get my daughter to call her by a boy name. And when my daughter said that she wasn't really comfortable calling her by a boy name when last week she was a girl, it amounted to a bunch of bullying and intimidation on my daughter. So I think that we are at a place in time where young people today, especially on college campuses, are going to experience things that none of us, even though we've all experienced discrimination on college campuses, I certainly did, have ever experienced before. And that's why you have to be so equipped and so ready for this, and be willing to grab a mentor too, somebody older than you who's been there a little bit and can help you through those hard times.
I want to say one thing about me being a Democrat too, because back when I was a Democrat, my husband was always a very, very strong Republican. He still is. The fights we used to get in during the Clinton years were monumental. I used to argue, I can't wait to hear your reaction to what I'm about to tell you, because it's always the same everywhere I go. I used to argue about how Jimmy Carter was a much better president than Ronald Reagan. There you go. I know, right? I always say this, it's my public flogging. I always embarrass and humiliate myself to atone for my Democrat sins. The problem with being a Democrat and finally seeing the light and becoming a Republican, especially when you're married to a Republican, any of you who are married, raise your hands if you're married in a relationship, if you've ever dated anyone in your whole life. Let me see. Anybody? Okay. Imagine for the rest of your life having to tell your spouse, yes, honey, you were right about everything, about every single aspect of life. You were right. It happened last week. Something was buried in the back of my brain that he told me at one point like a decade ago, and I'm like, dadgummit, he was right about that too. And I actually told him, and I said, you were right about this too. It is not easy to change. To have to change political parties and admit that you were so wrong is not easy. But there are a lot of people who are on the fence right now. Young people, Hispanics, there's a large group of Hispanic people who I was back then and don't know it yet because they're being told who Republicans are. I believed Ronald Reagan was a bad man because he was a rich, wealthy, elitist actor, and Jimmy Carter was a farmer. He wore overalls. I grew up in Texas. He looked like everyone I knew back home. He probably had dirt under his fingernails. I don't know how much money Jimmy Carter actually had, but Democrats right now, one way we can get through to these people about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is an elitist, out of touch, every word that she has banned from her campaign. She is all of those things. We have got to make sure that these people understand they're not going to listen to facts. They're not. Just like Margie said, they're not going to listen to facts. My husband could have quoted things out of the Bible or things that God himself told him. When I was a Democrat, I would not listen. I wouldn't listen to him because I thought he had an agenda. You have to point out facts that they can look up that are going to insult them. You have to say, Hillary Clinton, between her and Bill, their net worth is $101 million. She has a speaking fee when she goes to college campuses of $300,000. And she has a writer sheet. Do y'all know what a writer sheet is? It's like what Mariah Carey and divas have, you know, list of demands. She wants a Gulfstream jet that seats at least 16 people. She always demands the presidential suite for herself and anyone else she wants to bring. She is an out-of-touch elitist. Democrats don't like those kind of people. I am one of those people who would have hated to know this about Hillary Clinton. That would have been a turning point for me. So we can never stress that enough, and that's a good tool for us to use, a good weapon. Although I don't believe for one moment Hillary is going to be the Democrat nominee.
And Sarah Palin wants a water and a bendy straw.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you one more question, then we'll open it up to the audience. I came across an interesting chart after the 2012 election, and it was on the gender gap in 3 states. It revealed how rarely conservative women used Facebook to promote conservative causes, conservative articles, conservative people. What can we do to change that? I know that you all have talked about, and you talk in your book, about creating an army of conservative women at the grassroots level. Do you want to give us a good nudge in that direction?
Well, we both have a lot to say about
We
this,
do.
actually. One of the most shocking statistics is the Pew Research statistics that if you've ever heard me speak or read anything I've written, I quote this over and over again because it's still so shocking to me. But one of the best places we can recruit is our churches and our temples, because 50% of men vote in a general election who warm the church pews on Sunday. 50% of the men sitting next to you in church. And I have experienced this very personally. When my husband was running for Senate, I remember thinking, well, we go to the biggest Southern Baptist church in the whole area, right here in the middle of the district. We're going to have so many volunteers and help. And then people would come up to me and they'd say, we're not getting your flyers. We're not getting any of your mail pieces. And I would go into a panic. Our mail house isn't doing their job, John. Something's wrong. John would be like, Gina, they don't vote. And I couldn't believe it, so I would go look up the records. Sure enough, most Christians don't vote. And this carries over to any other religion you can think of. 50% across the board, the men don't vote. Do you know the statistics on women? Who's going to guess? If you know, you can't say it. But who wants to guess? How many women who warm the church pews next to you on Sunday, how many of them actually vote? Guess. 20. Nobody ever guesses that low. Is that not shameful? Let me ask you something. Just this morning, I heard 999. Herman Cain. Your memory starts to go at this age. I heard Herman, I just see 999 when I don't know. Anyway, I heard him on Fox say, we've got to appeal to the moderates. No, we don't. For the last cut and pick in time, can we please never hear that narrative again? We have to appeal to the people sitting in the church pews next to us. That's who we need to bring out. And you know how you can do it? It's not by bringing them on election day. General election day, what the heck does that even do? By then we have the nominee. You need them engaged at this level. You need them engaged at the party level. That's where we need them. Otherwise, guess what? We've got Jeb Bush, and you might be fine with that, but you might not be. And anyway, you have your say in the primary. So if you want people to make a difference, you need to get them involved at this level, and that means next time Claire Booth Luce has an event, you bring someone, preferably a woman, from church. It's very simple. We could literally revolutionize the next election if we brought the women to grassroots events with us that we sit next to at church. Very simple.
And then for us with PolitiChicks, do y'all know our website? If you don't, please check it out. It's PolitiChicks.com. It started out as a little talk show with Victoria Jackson and me and a couple of women, and we wanted to go a different direction. We wanted to be a little more serious, and today we have a network of, I have about 50 writers right now across the United States. These are women activists. One of them, Julia C., S-E-A-Y, look her up. She has been instrumental in Oklahoma in eliminating Common Core. Handful of women, they got mad, they went to their school board, they stepped outside of their comfort zone, and they're just regular like us people, and now they're activists, and when you start with 50, it spreads to 50 more. It spreads to hundreds and hundreds of thousands. On Facebook right now, we have 122,000 people that follow us on PolitiChicks.
But we have a 500,000 person reach.
Yes.
And so that's...
our reach on Facebook is up to 3 million.
Oh, see, I stand corrected.
But I mean, it varies depending on Zuckerberg finding out that we're there or not. But I mean, on Twitter, and we can't encourage you enough to stay involved in social media. Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, whatever that evolves into, whatever it turns into, any chance you get to spread the message, do it respectfully, do it forcefully, and do it with facts. Those FFF.
And love, yeah.
FFF. Yeah. Facts, I don't remember which ones they are now. Facts, whatever I said before, I hope somebody wrote that down. Because it was really brilliant. Rats. I'm 53 now. I've lost most of my brain cells are leaving. I need to hurry up and get a president that we like before they're all gone by 2017.
I want to ask this audience a question on the note of your question, if I can. And can you please be honest with me here, because I really want to speak very specifically to some people in this room. Raise your hand if you would be so bold. I know this is like an altar call. I told you I started out Southern Baptist. I'm Presbyterian now, but the altar call thing, it really caught on. Raise your hand if you are not on Facebook or Twitter right now. Not active. Even if you have a Facebook account, but you don't use it for your political activism. Go ahead and raise your hand.
Remember how Gina talked about stomping on people's feet with her stilettos?
Getting ready. Getting ready. It's going to hurt. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, no, you're not.
And now I'm going to make you all hate me, and you're not going to want to buy any of my books. But this is what I'm going to say to you. Of those of you who raised your hand right there, if I can now ask another question, because you know I'm setting this up to totally make you feel horrible about this. I'm kidding. I'm going to be nice. But for those of you, is it for privacy reasons? Raise your hand if you're concerned about them getting in your business, them looking at your stuff. Raise your hands higher, because you're exactly who I want to talk to. Okay. Let me remind you of something. Of those of you who raised your hands, still I'm seeing 5 hands on that, which means this audience is very engaged in social media, and I'm pretty proud of you for that. But of those who still raised their hands, I'm going to take it one step further. Raise your hand if you've raised your hands the past 2 questions, and if you've flown since 9/11. Raise your hand on an airplane. They have naked pictures of you. You have no privacy. Get on Facebook. I want to say this because... I'm sorry, told you I warned you. I want to say this to you in all seriousness, because when we speak to a lot of Republican women's groups, we speak to a lot of women's policy groups. We're so honored to be here with this particular very fine organization today. But when we do, I always try to pull the president aside and say, you know, hey, what can I say today that really matters to you and your audience? Do you know, without fail, what the answer is every time? Can you help us get more young people? Can I tell you something? No, I can't. But you can. But you have to be in social media. Rush Limbaugh pointed out that we, in our generation's mindset, the 40 over set, right? We tend to think in terms of morning news, evening news, right? I just got a new show. I'm going to be a PM anchor on a brand new network with 32 million viewers. I hope you'll join me. I'm really excited about that. But guess what? That's not how young people do television anymore. They don't. They pick it and they watch it online. So guess what? If you're not posting it, they're not getting it. They don't watch Fox News. They're not going to read Regnery's next book. They're not going to read our next book, and they're not going to listen to our speeches. Do you know where they are? They're on social media. So for those of you who looked at me cross-eyed when she said I did ABC's Wife Swap and Al Jazeera and all that, you know why? Because we have to go onto their turf. They won't come to us. We have to go onto their turf, love them, talk truth, don't water it down, and help them to understand that we really are the party of the great majority of values in this country. So I hope that those of you who raised your hand, I'm out of friend space on my Facebook page, but I'll make a special place just for you if you'll get on Facebook. And let me tell you one other thing. You don't have to put your face on Facebook or even your real name. You could be, you know, Susie Q. It doesn't matter who you are, and you could put the picture of Bugs Bunny up there. But if your message is good, why would you not grace social media with your presence. I don't care what you call yourself, just be there. Please be there. It matters so much to the 2016 elections.
Yes.
They have a lot to say, and I'm sure after this you've had a lot of questions building up in your mind. So we'll take a couple of questions from the audience.
Is this on? Yeah. I love you guys. You guys are awesome.
Aw, thank you.
And very similar to what you guys were talking about, I think one of the things that liberals at least say that they do better than conservatives is sort of appeal to the hearts of these lower educated women, of these lower status women, women that don't necessarily work. And they try to appeal to them with their programs and their taglines and stuff to that, like that. Conservative women often try to appeal to their sort of logical side.
Yeah.
But there are some women who just don't respond to that. They don't, I'm not going to say that they don't know how to think logically, but they haven't been trained that that's the right way to view the world. And what do you recommend to conservative women in their everyday lives to do to also reach out to the hearts of these women who don't want to think logically, at least not initially, in their own lives?
One of my writers, and she's actually a family member on my husband's side. All the really crazy ones are on his side, of course. True story. She was a really good writer for me, for PolitiChicks. And she lives in Mississippi. And one of her biggest struggles wasn't liberals in Mississippi, because where she lives, there weren't that many. It were, I'm a writer. I'm actually from Texas, sorry. It was other conservative women. It was her friends, because they didn't want to hear about this. A lot of people, we're from California, and then there's New York. They think that all of the problems sorry, Gina, all the problems in America are from us, and it's never going to get to them. But guess what? Houston, Texas has the same bathroom bill. Houston, Texas, and Austin, Texas are pretty much gone.
You know what the bathroom bill is with the you can
decide what
gender
you want to be and go to any bathroom.
What gender you want to be that day and go
Right.
into any bathroom. Yeah.
It's not anything that happens in California and New York is going to happen to the middle part of the country. We cannot stress enough, if you have family members in the middle part of the country, anything between California and New York, we have to make them understand that anything that's happening, all these extreme things that they're hearing, from a distance, it's headed their way. They are attacking Texas with all their might, because Texas has been a success story for business, for everything good about America can be found in Texas. And it's not just because I'm a 7th generation Texan and love that state with all my heart. It's just the truth. They have to go after states like that. We cannot stress enough that this is not just a fight for crazies in California and New York. It's headed your way. And anyway, the PolitiChick writer that I had, she actually quit. She couldn't handle it anymore.
We actually we address this in our book as well. We talk about pivotal questions that you can ask somebody who doesn't agree with you. I like to take a question approach, and maybe it's my background in psychology, but I like to take a question approach with people that don't agree with me, rather than just coming out guns a-blazing, you're wrong, and making someone feel impugned for that. I spend a lot of time in the relationship aspect, and I have a lot of people that I mentor, and I have specific groups that tend to be liberals that I like to go into and like to I consider it a mission field. For me, politics is a mission field. And so I think that with questions that are set up exactly right, and again, we go into more detail on this in our book, you can have amazing, and I'll tell you, when I did Wife Swap, as you can imagine, they matched us up with a couple. If you all don't know what Wife Swap is, no, there's none of that. For those of you who don't watch TV, I don't want you to be thinking anything about me. I'm a very good girl. But been married 25 years to a wonderful man. And but when we were asked to do Wife Swap, I said no like 4 times. And then I kept hearing myself speak at these events and calling myself a culture warrior. And I thought, where exactly are you warring, Gina? Where exactly? Because you go on Fox News, which I do every week, and you get these Atta-girl letters. Okay, well that's great. I sang to the choir and they appreciated me. Bravo. What is that really going to get me? Now don't misunderstand me. What we're doing here today is very important. What you're doing, your work and speaking to like-minded activists and honing our message, huge, huge. But we also have to go to where we can win hearts. And so we went on Wife Swap, and I thought, well, they'll pair us up with, I don't know, an Occupy Wall Street person, because I'm kind of a Tea Party person. Oh, they'll pair us up maybe with a gay couple. I can love anybody. I live in California. All my neighbors are gay. I can do this. This is no big deal. And with my children, every day for the whole 6 months before we did this, I kept saying, one thing. One thing. What's your one thing? No matter who walks in this house, how they look, how they smell, what's your one thing? And my kids would be, we have to love them. I'm like, yes, you love them. That's it. Everything else will fall into place if you just love them. But what I was not prepared for was that it was a polyamorous family, which you might not know what that is, but coming soon to a theater near you, as Anne-Marie spoke about, is the idea of you can be married to basically anyone, as many people as you'd like, of any gender, and it's kind of like a whole big group thing where we just kind of, yeah, but in this particular case, it's one guy, and he thinks he should be able to have as many women without marrying them as he wants to have. And this was very, very outside. I'd never even heard of polyamory. Have you? I hadn't. And so anyway, after the show, you can imagine the hate mail, reams and volumes, but I have friends for that. My friends actually filtered all that out for me, and people like Anne-Marie went on the warpath for me in social media, and all of our PolitiChicks from all over the country supported us. And then I started reading the email that got forwarded to me from the people who were scanning all my email, filtering it, and I started seeing things like this. I worked to elect Barack Obama the last 2 elections. I was official staff. But after seeing the way these supposed tolerant people on my side treated you and your children on that show, I can never vote for a Democrat again. Now let me tell you something. That is why I live and breathe. And one of those people, I actually put the letter in our book. And he was a liberal, gay, New York talk show host with a massive influence. And he's one of the ones who had to say, I watched that and I thought we were tolerant, but you're tolerant. And that, to me, is why we have to go on to their turf. Yes.
We have time for one more question, but you will have an opportunity. Both Anne-Marie and Gina have agreed to sign books, so you'll have an opportunity to not only get their book, but also chat with them. Last question.
Ladies, I am so just motivated right now for hearing you two. And so I just have to thank you so much, first and foremost. But one thing that I've learned, and I public speak, I'm a student, but I'm doing an internship, and I talk about technology and worldview and apologetics right now where we're at. And one statement that we make is that the world is coming at us, and we are given so many unquestioned answers. That's the problem today. And so how do you handle filtering all of these things that we're getting from technology, from media, from pop culture, from the other side? How do you decide and, I guess, handle with grace and love and filter those different statements and things that are coming at us?
First, can I say that I think we'd like to recruit you to write for PolitiChicks, because
Yes,
you're
please.
extremely articulate.
Please, and I'll give you my card. I'm not. Yeah, seriously. One of the things that's been really effective for us, like if you get an evil, mean, we were just talking about this at lunch. If you get a really evil, mean post on Facebook, which happens a lot, we've had death threats. We've been called every name in the book, and I had to look some of these names up. I don't know what all this stuff means. You have to handle it with grace and respect, and you have to answer these posts, as long as they're not, insulting everyone on your Facebook personal page. It's not necessarily for that person, because it's biblical. We can't save everybody. Moses couldn't save everybody. After he freed the slaves, and they saw the most amazing miracles in the Bible. And then the minute he turns his back on them, what happens? They're worshiping the golden calf, and then he comes back down still with the tablets written by God and says, okay, I'm going to come on up here, and still some of them clung to that golden calf. We can't save every Democrat. We can't save all of them, but there are some that we can save, that are watching us. They're listening to every word we say. They're watching who we are. And even if you can't save the person who was insulting, the way you respond, someone else is reading that. Someone else is watching you. That's who you speak for. You speak for all the peripheral people who are going to follow your lead. And that's who we all have got to be. We have to be ladies and gentlemen, which was the title of Gina's other book. We have to remember who we are and set an example and be the light, because we own the truth. We are the truth. It's our responsibility to shine the light on this darkness. And I was in the darkness. I can tell you for a fact, once you've seen the light, you can't unsee it. You can't ever go back to the darkness again. And it's almost evangelical for me that I never wanted to do this ever in my life. And my civics teacher from high school found out that this is what I do for a living, and he just laughed. I never, ever, ever wanted to be doing what I'm doing. No disrespect for what I'm doing, but this wasn't the path I ever thought I would be on. But thank you, God, for putting me on this path, if this is what I'm supposed to do. So, yeah.
And let me add
Good
to that.
girl.
Yes, I like you a lot.
I do too.
Just the way you stated
We're going
that
to take
was-
you home with us.
Yeah, I think suitcase.
Yes.
Extra luggage. I want to say the last chapter of our book, I talk about a sort of embarrassing thing that I did on my radio show back when I had a little radio show on a little Christian station in St. Louis. I was just getting started, and Eagle Forum, Phyllis Schlafly mentored me, and I know, quite blessed, and also Bill Federer. Those were my mentors in St. Louis. I told you, pick them, and pick them well, because you're going to need them. And so Phyllis had introduced me to this woman named Kitty Worthman. Is anyone familiar with Kitty? She's well into her 90s, if she's still living, I'm not sure. Anyway, I had her on my show. She's the only guest that I kept the whole entire 2-hour show, which you're never supposed to do. It's like rule number 1 of radio. You keep them one segment, you get them gone, you get your next guest. I was just canceling, having my producer, I got to keep this woman, because she was an Austrian Holocaust survivor. And she shared the story. This clicked for me like nothing ever has in my life. She shared the story with me of sitting across a concentration camp room from her mother and wondering why her mother didn't do more to save their country from tyranny. And I had the biggest light bulb moment. I was happy. I loved being a senator's wife. I didn't want this either, at all. And I loved hosting dinner parties and doing volunteer stuff and being home, homeschooling my kids. It's much easier to homeschool them from home than from Minnesota, and or wherever you are. But I decided that in that moment, that if, God forbid, I ever have to sit across from my daughter, right, and explain to her what I was doing while our country fell to tyranny, I was going to have one hell of a good answer. That's right. And that thought gave me repeated nightmares, spurred every piece of action I've engaged in ever since then. So I would ask everybody in this room, God forbid, that 10 years from now, I don't think there's a person in this room that doubts this could be the case, that 10 years from now, you're sitting across from your child, your niece, your grandson, and they say to you, Mom, Dad, Grandpa, what were you doing while the United States fell? Whatever you want your answer to be, that's your marching orders.
Thank you, ladies, very, very much.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether we're going directly into the next panel, or we are. All right.